Laugh out loud, Carter Page just blew Russia conspiracy out of the water by Amy Moreno for truthfeednews.com. Looks like yet another Democrat Russia conspiracy theory has been blown out of the water. This time by Carter Page, who the Democrats believe is the thread that ties President Trump to Russia. I've never spoken with him any time in my life, Carter Page said on ABC. When asked if he ever had any direct contact with Trump in any form, such as a phone call, an email, or a text, Page replied, never. Okay, but Carter Page, now we know, was a plant by the FBI, and that's how he's keeping up his front. Do you see, to make it credible to believe that he wasn't an FBI plant?
This Republican memo that was released shows that the abuse of your civil rights was even worse than you imagined. Why? There is no basis for it. If you think about our Constitution, due process rights, freedom.
In other words, this guy now is saying, I had no contact with Trump. He's playing his role. But he's actually a plant by the FBI. Do you see what I'm saying? He's a plant by the FBI in order to get that FISA warrant to spy on him, because they couldn't get the FISA warrant to spy on Trump, so they got it on Carter Page. That's why he is a plant for the FBI, and he's playing innocent and speaking like I never had contact with Trump. I don't know why they were investigating me, when he was that's his role, to play that role in order to make it believable that he's on Trump's side, so to speak.
Of First Amendment rights, it was just shredded, the Constitution. So as you know, you can't get a warrant like this, a wiretapping warrant like this, and
listen. Why are they interviewing him so much? Do you see, in order to make it believable that Carter Page is actually not against Trump and that they spied on him? Just take a listen.
This Republican memo that was released shows that the abuse of your civil rights was even worse than you imagined. Why? There is no basis for it. If you think about our Constitution, due process rights, freedom of, First Amendment rights, it was just shredded, the Constitution. So
he has to play his role as if he is being violated. You see, this is all a role. That's why they're giving him this much airtime. Do you see? Because this is a 3-minute and 37-second clip, and I'm more than sure he was on longer than that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given him airtime, and they wouldn't be nice to him. Watch the difference in the way they interview him.
You can't get a warrant like this, a wiretapping warrant like this, unless they can demonstrate probable cause you were working as a foreign agent. And
you see how he's speaking to him? They couldn't get a FISA warrant under Trump. They had to get it under him. That's why the FBI planted Carter Page.
Actually had been on the FBI's radar for working for Russia for several years. You were the target of a Russian recruitment effort back in 2013. The FBI interviewed you about that, correct?
I was a witness to a case that they were doing, so I was supporting the FBI in that case.
Right. You gave documents, though, to someone they believe they charged with espionage.
See, this is sort of spin, because I was teaching a course down Broadway here at NYU, and I told him a couple of things about what I was talking about in my course, and I gave him a couple of my notes from the documents that I gave my students. So in terms of, it sounds, when you say giving documents to a quote-unquote spy, and, it's a couple of courses. Yeah. Well, it sounds a lot worse than reality, but that's reality.
You also wrote just a couple months after that, in September 2013, to an academic press saying, this was reported by Time magazine, over the past half year, I've had the privilege to serve as an informal advisor to the staff of the Kremlin. So you were recruited at one point by a Russian agent. Then you wrote yourself that you're an informal advisor to the Kremlin. So that does lead people to believe, is this guy working with Russia?
Well, you know, first of all, it's the G20 summit was in St. Petersburg that year, and they were bringing together people from around the world. And so a lot of people were from literally Australia, UK, here.
These are your words. I served as an informal advisor to the staff of the Kremlin. You're advising the Kremlin.
There was a lot of people advising. We were part of an informal group, you know, and meeting in Geneva, Paris. We had a meeting in the New York Stock Exchange. The first meeting was in the New York Stock Exchange, the center of capitalism.
But
right?
You could understand how that would raise questions and could lead to probable cause. On the one hand, at one point you say you're an advisor to the Kremlin, then you're an advisor to Donald Trump.
Look, the probable cause, based on all the evidence that keeps dripping out and now has been further substantiated with the Friday, first memo, is that it was based on that dodgy dossier, which was, a political stunt, which is unfortunate, which is false evidence. So if you talk about obstruction of justice, that's real obstruction.
Well, in fact, as you know, the Democrats have said it was not based just on that dossier. They've said there were other reasons, and this was an application that was renewed at least 3 times by people who work for President Trump, as well by judges appointed by Republican presidents.
Well, it'll be interesting. I appreciate the New York Times putting in their request for the FISA
all the underlying documents.
I look forward. I hope they get it. Yeah.
What do you think that's going to show?
I have no idea. What I've seen thus far is just complete ridiculousness. The fact that this dodgy dossier and news reports, when a lot of same newspaper, New York Times, was pitched this information by Mr. Steele, and they said, no way.
But you've been under surveillance from the court since October 2016. Since that time, have you ever spoken to Donald Trump?
I never spoke with him since. I never spoke with him any time in my life.
You've never spoken to Donald Trump in your life?
Nope.
No email, no text, nothing like that?
Never.
Carter Page, thanks very much.
Thanks, George.